vlog. This vlog is our buddy read vlog, so if you're joining in on that buddy read, welcome. Good to have you here, and if you're not, hopefully this makes you want to pick up this book. I hope, because I haven't started it yet, so I hope it's good. Or maybe you've already read this book before, and if you have, be sure to give your thoughts in the comments below. This vlog is going to be a very much at-home vlog. Don't worry, I don't have COVID or anything like that, knock on wood. But we are getting a tropical storm right now, which came out of nowhere, really. Like, just a few days ago, they're like, yep, it's gonna turn into a tropical storm, and I'm like, no warning whatsoever. So it is called Helene, I think is how you say it. It's like Helene. Sounds French. But that is happening right now. Very dreary weather. I don't think I'll be able to read outside this week. These things happen. It's kind of best to just shelter in place unless, you know, they tell you to evacuate. I've never evacuated. That's never happened. But this seems to be a really like rain heavy storm where it's just a lot of rain rather than wind, which it has been very dry here, and my sinuses and all can definitely feel it when it's dry. So rain is always a blessing in my book. But yeah, books. So let's go into what I will be reading this week. Okay, this one was my mood read last week, but I honestly didn't pick it up all weekend. I just did not want to read it. It's not that it's bad or anything, I just wasn't in the mood. So this is going to be my morning read that I'm about to get into and just read one of these chapters a day. But this is No Place for the Weary Kind, Women of the Smokies by Courtney Liggs. This is about different women who had some kind of impact on the Smoky Mountains. I'm currently on the section about artists. And then we have the buddy read. I am going to be doing, I was originally just going to be reading this physically, but I am going to be picking up the audiobook because I haven't done an audiobook this month and I want to do one. And this book, since it is over 500 pages, I thought that would be a good one to choose the audiobook for. And it seems the one that I download, because there's an abridged version and then the normal version. So I downloaded the normal version. It did cost more money, but you know, I needed that version for this. And it seems like there's really good reviews of that version, and the guy who did it is like a very well-known audiobook narrator. He's been around forever. I think he was born in the 1930s. So, oh my gosh, think of when he was born. I doubt audiobooks were a thing. I know there are some records, like vinyl records, that are audios for things. And well, if you think about it, wasn't The War of the Worlds, they were telling it over the radios, so that's kind of an audiobook in a sense. That's really interesting. I never thought about the history of audiobooks, but what we're reading this week is The Alienist, and I actually don't even know what this book is about because my mass market paperback edition does not have a description anywhere on the book, so we're going to find out together what my buddy read is going to be about. If you wonder how I choose the buddy reads, I personally don't. I make my TBR. In this case, I was just getting one thriller from every one of my bookshelves. I send my TBR to one of my friends, and I let him decide which one we're going to buddy read. And there'll be exciting things in 2025 with how we do buddy reads on this channel, so stay tuned for that. Okay, here's what The Alienist is about. The year is my tabs are falling out. The year is 1896, the place New York City. On a cold March night, New York Times reporter John Schuler Moore is summoned to the East River by his friend and former Harvard classmate Dr. Laszlo Kreisler, a psychologist or alienist. On the unfinished Williamsburg Bridge, they viewed the horribly mutilated body of an adolescent boy, a prostitute from one of Manhattan's infamous brothels. The newly appointed police commissioner, Theodore Roosevelt, I did not know he was a police commissioner, but is a highly unorthodox move, enlists the two men in the murder investigation. Counting on the reserved Chrysler's intellect and Moore's knowledge of New York's vast criminal underworld, they are joined by Sarah Howard, a brave and determined woman who works as a secretary in the police department. Laboring in secret, for Alienist and the emergent discipline of psychology are viewed by the public with skepticism at best, the unlikely team embarks on what is a revolutionary effort in criminology. amassing a psychological profile of the man they're looking for based on the details of his crimes. Their dangerous quest takes them into the tortured past and twisted mind of a murderer who has killed before and will kill again before the hunt is over. Fast-paced and gripping, infused with the historian's exactitude, The Alienist conjures up the Gilded Age and its untarnished underside. Verminous tenements and opulent mansions, corrupt cops and flamboyant gangsters, shining opera houses and seamy gin mills. Here is a New York during an age when questioning society's belief that all killers are born, not made, could have unexpected and mortal consequences. And on Goodreads, this has a 4.06 with over 100,000 people giving their rating, so hopefully it's good if that many people think it's good. And then my next read will be a new mood read, and that is an indie published book, and it is The Floating Girls by Lo Patrick. This is a historical fiction. The backwaters of Georgia hold many buried secrets, but they won't stay buried forever, so we will talk more about this when I start that later. And then my ebook, I'm literally at like 99% of the way through. This is An Echo in the Bone by Diana Gabaldon. This is following a family during the American Revolution with some time travel elements involved, and that is what I am reading this week. We have some book mail today. This is an Amazon. Where is it coming from? Jones Sausage Road in Garner, North Carolina. Okay, these boxes always confuse me. I'm like, where do you open it? Is there a tab on? I don't know where you open this. Like that? We're gonna try that. Okay, I got us like halfway. Okay. This book came out this year, and there's a story about why I bought this. Darius Rucker's memoir. So I went to the LSU South Carolina football game on Saturday, and Darius Rucker, he was there. He performed on College Game Day. I had seen him perform before with Taylor Swift. Yeah, okay. But there was some controversy, not really like controversy, but my dad, he left Columbia in the summer of '86, and it says here in 1986 Darius Rucker co-founded Hootie and the Blowfish at the University of South Carolina. And so, as I said, Darius Rucker was at the game on Saturday, and then that started some confusion with my dad, because some people are like, yeah, he lived in the same dorm as us, like the same building. Dad doesn't remember that. So I was like, oh, he wrote a memoir this year, and literally it says University of South Carolina in the first, or in the second line. So we should read it and see if it says anything about what dorm he was in. No, I don't know if it will or not, but I would like to read this anyway, just because he is such a legend in South Carolina and everything. That's at PNC Arena, which they changed the name, but it's my favorite arena ever. Oh my gosh, beautiful. We love that. I wonder, where's one? I think I've been in that section over there, 129. But 115 and like 116, those are my favorite sections at PNC. And what, was it 108 or 208? 108, because it's the lower bowl or whatever. We got this, and y'all know I would have bought the paperback, but my dad was like, buy the hardback. So I was like, okay. So I don't know if I'm going to count this towards my book buying this month, since I kind of got it for my dad. We're both going to read it, and then one of my friends, he's buying it for us to read together as well. So we got this, Darius Rucker's memoir. I got to 20% of the way into The Alienist, and I don't really know how I feel about this book yet, as I usually don't know until the 25% mark anyway, but we're really just building. I mean, as you can see, this is a tome. It's over 500 pages, and I'm only 119 pages into it, so it's building. We have to build, you know, and all of that. So we will go into my tabs here, since I'm not at a quarter of the way yet, but My first tabs happen in the first chapter, which is taking place in 1919, so it's in the future from the rest of the story that I think is in like 1886, something like that. And we keep having Theodore Roosevelt mentioned, and I was not expecting that. I know when I read the description to y'all earlier, it said Theodore Roosevelt, and I was like, whoa, I did not know he was going to be in this book. And then I didn't expect real life historical figures in this book. I thought it was all just going to be fictional, all fictional stuff. And then I get to the next page, and because this is after the death of Theodore Roosevelt. The public may not like it. In fact, it's been concerned about public reaction that's forced us to keep our secret for so many years. Even the majority of Theodore's obituaries made no reference to the event. In listing his achievements as president of the Board of Commissioners of New York City's Police Department from 1895 to 1897, it's not Teddy Roosevelt, the U.S. president, but now I do think it is back to being Teddy Roosevelt, who we know. So that's been my main mystery so far in this mystery book. And then on page 13, this is just a general thoughts tab. It's talking about how New York City is very crime-ridden, that there's drunkards, morphine and cocaine addicts, prostitutes, all going on. And Houston, that's how they say it in New York, because I went there and I was saying Houston and people didn't know what I was talking about, but it's Houston Street. You couldn't go there. No honest man could go there like without getting shot. So I knew that New York City and like the 1960s, 70s, all of that was a really like not safe place, and it was very like crime ridden. For some reason I thought it was only in those decades. Obviously everything has to come from something, so knowing it was like that 100 years before too, I did not expect that. So has New York, from the time it was colonized to like the 1980s, was it only like just debauchery and wild? I don't know, but I did not expect that from New York. Then on page 49, we have another character tab about our guy Teddy again. So it was saying, but when Roosevelt was at headquarters, which was ruled by a board of 4 commissioners, of which he was chief, he was distinguished from the other 3 by the title President. Very few of us guessed at the time he would answer to an identical title in the non-too-distant future. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is Teddy Roosevelt then, and I skipped my writing tab. But this book is very descriptive writing, and I mean, we can assume that's why it's over 500 pages, and it's not, the descriptive writing isn't bogging me down because the chapters are relatively short, less than 20 pages. I think the perfect chapter length is about 15 pages. So that it reads, so I never feel bogged down because of the descriptive writing, which is great because there's a lot of descriptive writing, like purple prose, I guess, that will weigh me down, but then there's some writers who can just do it very well. We're having they're talking about their time at Harvard in 1877, and there was this one young professor they had who had a habit of reclining on the floor when his students' participation was flagging and declaring that teaching was a mutual process. And I get he's doing it because the kids aren't paying attention, but I love that teaching was a mutual process. I think, yes, it depends on the teach. There has to be a student and there has to be a teacher, but we can learn from everybody. Students can learn from teacher can learn from students, and on and on it goes. I think that that made me think of that. And then Jack the Ripper got mentioned, and when I heard this book was about a serial killer in the 1800s, I instantly thought of Jack the Ripper, so I was glad that he got a mention in here. And then I have 2 plot tabs, and we have, I'm not going to say that one. I think it could be spoilery, but the investigation into the killing in this book has been the most detailed investigation I've ever read in a book. I feel like this is how it really would have gone down in the 1800s. I don't know if it really would, because obviously I wasn't there and I haven't done a lot of research on the NYPD of the 1800s, but this investigation just feels so detailed and intricate. And then we have Chrysler, who is the alienist. He is, what was it? What did they say an alienist was exactly? I always get these P words confused. It's an expert who studied mental pathologies. So I don't know, is that a, I am blanking on the word. It's not psychiatric. No. I am blanking on that word, but so this man, Chrysler, he has an institute where he's helping a lot of these kids. And I think he is actually a good guy, so when I'm comparing him, but it reminds me of the lab in Stranger Things, how Brenner has all these kids who have powers. That's what it really reminds me of. And then we have one more tab. This is plot. Priests have been brought up, and we know that Catholic priests, not all of them, because we're not saying everybody, but we know some of them are creeps. And our victim in this, was a young male prostitute. So I'm thinking the priest did it. I'm not going to go into anything other than because of who the victim is, and yeah, so because I don't want to give any spoilers, but I think the two priests had something to do with it. It was something with Catholicism, but you never know where a book might go. So there is my update on the Alienist. I am late to dinner, not really, because like I'm not eating with anybody, it's just me, but I need to feed the cats. Yeah, I'm gonna feed cats and then I'm gonna feed myself. I am about to start The Floating Girls by Lo Patrick, so let's see what this book is about. One hot, sticky summer in Bledsoe, Georgia, 12-year-old Kay Whitaker stumbles across a stilt house in a neighboring marsh. Upon Andy Weber, a boy about her age. He and his father have recently moved back to Georgia from California, and rumors of the suspicious drowning of Andy's mother years earlier have chased them there and back. Kay is fascinated and enamored with Andy. She doesn't listen when her father tells her to stay away from the Webers. But when Kay's sister goes missing, the mystery of Miss Weber's death and Kay's parents' potential role in it comes to light. Kay and her brothers must navigate the layers of secrets that emerge in the course of the investigation as their family and the world as they know it unravels around them. I was in the Georgia marshes back in August and July, so hopefully it brings me back to that atmosphere, but it sounds like we're gonna have some mystery here. It was listed as a mystery on Goodreads. Yeah. So, gotta keep it spooky for guys. Happy Tuesday. So last night I did finish the Outlander book and I gave it a 4.75. I did like it more than the 6th book in the series, which I also gave a 4.75, but it wasn't a 5-star, so I think the other one needed to be bumped down. But for me, once I put in a rating, that's the rating it gets unless I reread it and it changes. So I will be doing a new ebook, and it's going to be one for my TBR just to have a book in between the Outlander books, and that is The Haunting of Henry Twist by Rebecca F. John. This is a historical mystery taking place in the 1920s, very much the roaring 20s between the wars in London. We have a young married couple, Henry and Ruby. They have a baby on the way. Ruby goes out one day and is tragically killed in a car accident, but the baby survives. And then this man, Jack, comes into Henry's life, and he's just really drawn to this man. He's so magnetic, and he doesn't understand why, and he doesn't know if that man has anything to do with Ruby's death. So that will be my next ebook that I will be starting tonight. But I did get to about 40% into the Alienist. I'm sorry, I have a baseball, I don't know if I can show it, I don't want to get in trouble, but I have a baseball game on that I know people at, and I only think that's fun watching games. Oh my gosh, that's literally my dad. I see my dad on here. I see him. Oh my gosh, can it like zoom out? Like, Bobby Miller, love you, but oh my gosh, I literally just saw my dad on there. I need to text him that I saw him. I'm at 40% of the way into the Alienist, but yes, I have this baseball game, and it's the Dodgers, and I was originally supposed to go to this, and then I got kicked out, not out of MLB, but yeah, so I forced my dad to go to this. I was like, you gotta go to this for me, because I would love to see the Dodgers. So we need to go to where I started today reading, which was on page 119. I read 109 pages, I think it was today. So in chapter 10, we are really seeing the early days of crime scene investigation. And I never really thought of when did that develop. So this has me thinking a lot of just things I never really thought about before, because I've only said I'm not a true crime person. So I never really see that. And they're showing the picture, so I'm looking for my dad again. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm so distracted. We are seeing like fingerprinting, and a lot of people are like, no, that's not gonna work. It's not gonna solve any crimes. And here we are 130 years later, and crimes have been solved by fingerprinting. And you can tell that a lot of research has been put into the setting. Something that I love is we are in New York City, so it's the same streets how I was talking about Houston Street yesterday, and just a lot like of places that are still there to this day, but we're kind of, I'm picturing it like a cinematic thing. We see the New York City, the all modern glitz glam that we have today, then wipe down, going to 1896 where it's all gritty, smoggy, because this is the Industrial Revolution era, Victorian era. I mean, you can kind of tell by this cover. So it's really dark and gritty, and I just picture all that grittiness getting on your face. Gross, but you can still be like, okay, I know this street, I know Fifth Avenue, whatever, or I know the Brooklyn Bridge, I've been on the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, whatever. So seeing it is really cool to see all of that on page. And oh my gosh, there's my dad. This is so funny. Okay, there was just a quote that reminded me of somebody in my life, so I'm not going to read it here, but I'm going to tell other people about it later. And something I realized, all the murders we're seeing are around water. We have one on the Brooklyn Bridge, a ferry station, a water tower, and I'm like, there's something with water with this killer. And this is like the deepest thriller I have ever read, when they're going into why they think the killer is killing the kind of people that he's killing, the way he's doing it. It's just so deep, and there's so much depth to this book, which I think is great, because I think a lot of times thrillers are just very simple, because yes, there is like a 2 + 2 = 4 kind of thing. It's formulaic, and there's a formula to thrillers, but this is just adding so much more depth to it. And then a theory here, I'm not going to say who, but if one of the people related who Chrysler works with is the killer, I have a reason of why I think this person might be, but I'm not going to say why. And then we have Parkhurst, who is like this guy running for office or something. He was a reverend, soon to be famous. So he went on this like famous adventure through the city. His Parkhurst's revelations about how very degenerate life in much of New York had become. So New York hadn't always been this like gritty, dirty, trashy place. How I was talking about yesterday, how I really just thought it was the 60s and 70s, but obviously we're in the 1890s and it is. So I wonder what made it turn into that. I'm wondering if it was the Civil War, maybe, because I mean that caused a lot of division in America. So I don't know if that's the case or something else, but those are all of my thoughts today. This is like upper 3-star, I would say, but I am still just, as I said, there's a lot of depth, so there's a lot of building, and it's going to be a journey to see what I end up reading. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, it is Wednesday, so I got to over halfway. I'm at like 57% of the way into the Alienist. There are my tabs I was trying to show you all. With these kind of old books, it's kind of hard to see since the books aren't like purely white or whatever. This book, yeah, is 30 years old. My edition is. So let's go into my thoughts. And as always, I always forget to do the tab of where I am vlogging, so I don't give y'all the same thoughts back to back, because that would be annoying and nobody came here for that. So we read 113 pages today. Let's go to the first one. Is a plot one. We get a letter from the supposed killer, and y'all know in true crime, like in real life, that happens a lot, where there'll be a note of people claiming to know something or claiming to be the killer. So I was like, this is a hoax. And the next page, okay, I'm like, maybe it isn't a hoax, but first intuition was that it was a hoax. My next note. Okay, so when Fred is trying to scoot by the tripod, Now he is like stuck. He doesn't know what to do. Light. Okay, because I have a ring light tripod behind the camera tripod, and I don't know why he went, because y'all know he's a pretty big cat. He's over 15 pounds, so I don't know why he went with the route that's the least amount of room, like right here, when he has this side where he has a lot more room. I don't know why cats are the way that they are. But we have our character Sarah, when she sees a dead body or I don't know if it's her first time seeing a dead body, but seeing a murdered body, she is like very shook, and it's like, this cannot be the work of a woman. A woman wouldn't do something like this. Mind you, they are in the 1800s, so that's something we'll talk about later. And then we have this long chapter. I think it's chapter 21. That is the longest chapter in the book, and my friend, he made a great point of how does the author expect us to remember all of this. Like, I have a general idea. It was mainly Keisler and Sarah going back and forth about if the killer is a woman or not, and we'll get to Keisler's side in a minute. But Sarah was all about, when she first saw the murdered body, she's like, a woman couldn't do this. She was very shook. And then we have her being like, not the mother, saying that it could have been the mother that caused issue in this guy's life. And I don't understand how she just switched like that. Because before she's like, it couldn't be a woman to cause all of this. And now she's like, it is. So yeah, 8 pages later, I'm like, yeah, I don't get Sarah, because Sarah sat back again disappointed at the result of her attempts to make Keisler see another dimension in the imaginary tale of the killer. As I must confess, I was somewhat confused myself. After all, it had been Keisler who had asked Sarah to come up with such theories, knowing that none of us could. To dismiss her thoughts in such a manner seemed arbitrary at best, especially when those thoughts sounded to a semi-trained ear at any rate as well as reasoned as his own hypothesis. And then I have thoughts at the end of the chapter. Okay, the tab was just a little farther back. So Keisler being so defensive, I think he knows more than he is letting on, because he was very on saying that a woman couldn't do this. And so I think he might know a little more. I'm not going to say more, but I do have a theory. I go to visit a man who is in an asylum who he started killing people. This is so wild. I'm just talking about all this death and all, but that is what spooky season is for. It's spooky. This guy, they're talking to him, and he had started killing people when he was like 12 or 13 years old. And they often, our narrator, Moore, he, it's like a small life escaped him, a pleased mischievous, again, just like a young boy's, keep comparing Jesse, the killer. This isn't our killer, but this guy they're visiting, keep comparing him to a young boy. So that has me thinking, do people get stunted at the age that they commit the crime at? Because I talk about a lot with my friends, because I like pop culture, is that I think famous people get mentally stunted at the age they became famous. Just a theory. I don't know if they really do. I'm not a alienist. And here's my big note of the day right here. It's just a general thought, is I don't agree with a lot of things in this book, as in how they go about this investigation. They're like, okay, the killer takes the eyes out of the body, so he must have something wrong with his eyes. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think some people are just brutal and be like, how messed up can I make this crime scene? Like, how disgusting can I make this crime scene? But then I have to remind myself that I'm looking at this through modern eyes. And these characters, this is still in the extremely early days of criminal investigation, crime scene investigation. And they don't have all the knowledge that we do now about serial killers and why people do the things that they do, and mental health. They don't have all the resources that we have now, and I have to remind myself of that, being like, yeah, so the setting of this book is the 1890s. This book was published, so that's what I was just saying, this was set in the 1890s. They don't have all those resources. It was published in the 1990s, where mental health wasn't discussed as much as it is now. Sure, it was discussed, but nowhere near as now when I'm reading this book in 2024. So those are my thoughts in the Alienist for the Thursday night football jersey. Number 8, the Jets. That's who we're going with. Actually, I don't know who I would choose to win the game, but that's who I'm pulling for. So I did want to update y'all on the Alienist. I got to 75%. Here are the new tabs. And let's go into the thoughts here. First tab I have is a plot one of 2 tabs I got today, or what I think the 2 major themes of the story are. So Chrysler had stacked his reputation on his theory of context, the idea that no adult's personality can be truly understood without first comprehending the facts of his individual experience. And all these people in this book have some sort of trauma and some sort of past. I mean, everybody on earth does. And that is what makes us. So it's not just this is what makes a killer, but this is what makes a human a human. This is what makes the person that they are. Then I have a character tab. Laszlo and John go to meet, or they kind of go to meet Morgan. And I'm assuming this is in like the JP Morgan family, you know, like the bougie Morgan family, the rich, well-to-do. But I don't understand if this man is like the mayor or some kind of leader, or if he just some rich guy, because, you know, rich people can just do what they want kind of thing. And then another quote that I think really describes the themes of the book. My studies have focused on the multitude of sins that can often be concealed by the family structure. I have attempted to expose those sins and to deal with the effects on children. I tell y'all all the time that I think the biggest problem that is not really addressed in America is mental health. And it starts in childhood and those childhood experiences. And most of the time it is generational. It's coming just down a line and kind of inevitable, but I think we need to be working to put a stop at that, putting, I know I'm going on like a political spill here, just more resources for kids. And this is just really the start of people realizing that that is an issue, that mental health, and that it usually comes from a generational source. Also, kind of political, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but a lot of this book is people being against immigrants. Now, these are immigrants coming from Europe, like, so think Italians, think Eastern Europeans, who are getting, like, are really, a lot of people are, like, xenophobic towards them, very nationalist, I would say. I have a hard time with all these words. But they judge these people of where they came from, and I just think that's so interesting that this is happening in the 1890s, and then in New York City today, all the immigrants get shipped there. So I just am like, wow, nothing really has changed in 130 years. Also, there was a part, I don't know if I wrote it down in my other notes, in the book. Oh, I do, I remember it. I think it might be our next tab. So they're all joking around being like, that guy kind of looked like our killer, of what we think our killer looks like. And I'm like, that is way too comedic the way they're talking about it. So now I do think this person they're talking about is the killer. And I'm like, okay, why would this man want to be killing these people? And I think it could fall back on that immigrant thing, that he does not want these immigrants coming to New York, that they think these immigrants are like criminals and just bringing all the crime, bringing disease to New York City. So they are coming to America or New York for a better life. So he's like, let's make life here look really bad, that immigrants get murdered here, so they're not going to want to come here. So just a theory. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, because there are so many ways of this book where I'm like, this person's a killer, this person's a killer, this one's a killer, this one's a killer. Moving on to our next chapter. Yeah, exactly. I have this, could this be our killer? This guy who was taken by Native Americans. And yes, so this has been my favorite section so far, with this John Beecham and the Drury. Or Drury is, I don't know. They said Drury in the audiobook, but there's no second R. But this has been my favorite section of the book, going in this investigation route. And it really just gives me Outlander vibes, but also North Woods, as it is taking place in Massachusetts, like in a very like farmy wood area. And yeah, that was my next, or no, we have one more. We have a blue right here. And yes, so this one guy they talk to, he has a balding head, and I know a lot of men do, but they've mentioned before that the killer has a balding head, so I'm like, what if this guy's the killer? See, there's so many theories. And then my last tab was just saying I love that section of that little investigation trip that they went on. So again, they're all the tabs. But my dad got back, and Penny was so excited. I've never seen Penny so excited in my life. I will probably include one of the videos I got of her, and just to memorialize her excitement. It's time to end out the vlog. I feel like I didn't have a lot of updates on my other books for y'all, but did we finish one for me to have started? No, we didn't. So I don't know why. There weren't a whole lot of updates for other books in this vlog, but we are making our way through the Alienist. And if you guys would like my final thoughts on this book, be sure to follow my Goodreads, my blog, my Storygraph. I only say Storygraph. It's Storygraph, right? Right? So you can follow me on those social medias, which are linked down below. Instagram as well. I will post a review on there, but the others will get it first. My blog will be the first place it goes live. I don't know what I'm going to rate that book. I'm going to say it's in the 3-star category, because there's no, it's feeling like a 3-star. And if you're curious what we're going to be reading in next week's vlog, we're just going to go back to doing thrillers, not a buddy read, but I mean, y'all are always free to pick up any of these books. I can't control what y'all read, but that will be The Haunting of Henry Twist by Rebecca F. John. Yes, I have already started this book, and Fred, you better not turn off the lights this week, because he is over here near the button. But this one I have already started, but we will be focusing on it next week, and it will be our main primary read. So this is The Haunting of Henry Twist by Rebecca F. John. I'm going to tell y'all what it's about. Again, is there a love so powerful it can bring someone back to life? So these two people are newlyweds. It's the roaring 20s in London after the First World War, and sadly Ruby, she gets hit by a car. She's very pregnant when this happens. She dies, but the baby survives. Her husband is just left in total despair, because I mean, his wife got hit by a car and died, so he is just in an awful place. And then he meets Jack Turner, who is just so magnetic, so irresistible, and he comes to Harry under such strange circumstances. And could he be offering Henry a life to replace the one he lost when Ruby died? So that's next week's book. If you made it through this whole video, leave a leaf emoji in the comments below, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. Don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.